Hey everybody, it's David with No Chaser, and today's topic is a state of mind. Well, maybe not a state of mind, something that happens, occurs in your mind when you are early in recovery or you're trying to quit drugs and alcohol, trying to break the habit, what have you. And it plays out a little bit like this. Now, there's going to be some profanity in this video more than others, but there's a reason for it. But anyway, so the scenario kind of goes like this, where you're just kind of moving and grooving along in life. You know, you've been sober for, I don't know, one day or 1 week or a month, maybe even a little bit more. But you're going along in your ways, and nothing really particularly bad happens. You know, there's no major sort of stressor or calamity that comes up in your life, or, you know, like I said, things are just kind of going as they're going. And this isn't like a case of like an extreme craving, or you've been obsessing about it like frequently and you feel the compulsion or anything like that, but you're just driving along, let's say, or you're at work and work's about to get off, or, you know, you're at home and you think about drinking and using, and you're like, no, probably shouldn't do that. You know, you even think about maybe the consequences in your head, and you play that sort of, you know, tape of as they say, play the tape through. You watch, you do all the kind of things that are like the mental protections to not drink or use. And then you just say, fuck it. You just say, fuck it. And, you know, there's like, in recovery community, recovery circles, I mean, this is actually a phrase where they say, a case of the fuck it. And the reason why, I mean, I could have used a different phrase to not cuss as much. I'm trying not to just cuss in general in my life, but definitely with the videos. But I think this is important because it really is the idea of fuck it really embodies this sort of feeling that comes over you. Like, at least it has for me, where, again, this is not a thing where you're just like, you're itching to drink or use, and you have been, and you've just been stuck in this sort of craving mode, or it just kind of keeps happening and wears you down. Or it's not this sort of big thing that has occurred in your life, this huge, you know, thing where you're just like, I need to drink to get through this, or I gotta get high, I can't stand this anymore. But, you know, for some reason, just your priorities that you had been following for however long you had been, you know, the sort of the program that you've been on, this sort of routine that you've had, just like as things are going on, and you're just like, fuck it. And this also, I mean, this can take its form in other ways too. It's not just necessarily saying fuck it and then going and drinking and using. It can also be, you say it to something you should, you know, you feel like you should be doing, whether it's going to a recovery meeting or going to counseling, or just things like maybe exercising or church or whatever, you kind of, just a thing that you know is important to do. And, you know, again, you know, it's so strange when it's happened to me before. It's not even like I built up this big arsenal of psychological, you know, justifications or the minimization of the problem, or, you know, I'm just like, I just need to, or, you know, even really self-pity, or like all the other things that kind of go into usually what makes me turn to the bottle. That's really what's not at play, and it feels just really invasive and almost frightening to a level, because it's just like, man, all of this way I've been working towards, or what I've been going after, I just kind of just said, whatever, fuck it. And, you know, it almost feels like, you know, this isn't the case, but it almost feels like you have no defense for it. It just kind of occurs to you, and this sort of weird, like, just instantaneous apathy, like, occurs to you, and you just go and make usually a bad decision. And I thought about this a lot too, where I was like, okay, this, you know, there are times where, you know, especially later on in my life, and sort of struggles with, you know, addiction and drinking and everything like that, where when I say fuck it, it's this big drama queen thing, where it's this big, like, I don't care about life and I can't stand this, and and I know the relapse is going to be bad and there's going to be all these consequences. Future David's going to have to deal with that. But, I just, what? I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. That's when there's like definitely self-pity and things like that. But I think this, this is something that happens to people that maybe haven't hit super harrowing rock bottoms, or just haven't been fighting for it long, or just are new to the whole recovery thing completely, and new to the idea of quitting. And maybe they talk about stages of change, and maybe you go back to the pre-contemplated stage, which is like wondering if you even have a problem, if you can do it differently. But again, even in the case of the fuck it's not even really about, you like constructing again the sort of justifications, or just doing exhibit A, exhibit B as a sort of prosecutor against your own sobriety. You're like, I should drink because of this, or what, life isn't just going the way I want it to, so I'm gonna drink. It's like I said, this sort of weird wave of apathy, or just sometimes it comes out of, I think, a sense of like boredom and emotional laziness, where you just kind of been tired of where you're at, even if it hasn't been that long, and all those, when you would really get down deep, dig deep into yourself, and be like, no, we need to take a step back. You need to think about your life. You need to think about what this means for you, and you just don't. So I think, honestly, again, this is not something where it's like completely indefensible. For me, it's felt like that, but the reality is that usually what it is for me is that I've been doing well, but I'm not really doing everything I need to, like, it's one of those cases where right now I'm in sobriety, maybe I'm not really in recovery. Like, I've kind of just removed drinking and drugs from my life, but still doing the same thing. Kind of hits you in like stages of complacency. I would definitely say it's a symptom of that. And there's something that I'm not sort of paying attention to, or some need that I've left unchecked. Again, not just a want, but a need, and I just really haven't noticed it. So that's why this sort of whatever small amount of sobriety or anything I had crumbles like a house of cards, just because also, being in early sobriety or anything like that is just difficult, because you just want to drink and do drugs. Like, you're not that far away from ground zero, so to speak, where you want to do what you've been doing for a long time, your go-to coping mechanism. But again, the case of the fuck-its doesn't seem to come from like even that deep need to cope. Like, how am I going to deal with this pain or this anxiety or these feelings of guilt or grief or whatever? It's, like I said, it seems like it's a symptom of complacency, or a symptom of just having needs unfulfilled, or maybe not having quite a purpose, or maybe it's, I don't know, it's a stark sort of reminder, or less of a reminder, a stark sort of like calling out to yourself that maybe you just weren't ready to quit, or maybe you weren't as serious about it as you thought you were. I mean, that's, again, I think that's when it's came to me. Like, I've never, the case of the fuck-its usually for me, like, I mean, they'll occur, but when I succumb to them, it's usually like earlier in sobriety, and it happened, more when before I got into some real stuff, the turmoil. I mean, actually I did, even at a young age, but I mean, there wasn't sort of the fatigue of like the constant relapses or rebuilding of life. It was, again, sort of this, I think it's an amalgamation of things, where it's a sort of, maybe you weren't ready to be sober, or maybe you still have delusions that you can kind of get away with it or do it normally, or, you just, you're not quite where you're supposed to be, and there's a frustration with that. And because what it seems like is that a case of the fuck-its is just simply, you don't have anything, or it feels that there's nothing at that moment that's going to pull you back and be like, no, you can't say fuck it because you have this, this, and this, regardless of what they may be. And that's kind of the funny thing about just people in general, is that even about myself, like throughout my life, where I've had lots of very good reasons all throughout my life of why I should not drink and do drugs. One is simply like, dude, your life, like, you're just really gambling every time you go out and do this stuff. But also, my life as in, like, if you restart the cycle, who knows how long you'll be trapped in it, who knows how much more time and opportunities and potential and just life that you're wasting while being stuck in this thing. Who knows how many more people you're going to hurt and how much more you're going to hurt yourself. And it really just seems to be this case where the priorities change, even if they've been the same. Like, you know, right now I feel like I'm staying sober, day 36. I don't know. April Fool's is my sobriety day, which is fun. But right now I'm doing it really for my life, which is funny because I've always had that kind of on the table, but it just means more to me now. And I know this is delving off into kind of a separate sort of subtopic, but that idea of like what family means to you or what your relationship means, or, sometimes people lose everything and then they get better, which could seem like it makes sense, or it could be counterintuitive because it's like, well, now you have nothing left. Like, why bother getting sober or clean? But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not telling you I'm giving any sort of advice or remedy for the case of the buckets. Like I said, it can be sort of a way that puts you in place of like, what are we really doing here? Like, what, that fleeting sort of passing of not caring enough is what it seems to be. And why would that occur to you? And like, why would you, again, succumb to it? And, why would it be so hard for you to create reasons to, withstand it? And I'm not like saying that, like, why? I'm mainly just talking to myself here, why had it been like that for me? And that's, again, one of the weirdest, strangest things about it is almost how flippant it is, where it's like this very serious thing as far as like concerning relapse. Or like I said, this could be a case where you get it when you're trying to get sober. Maybe you just have a couple of days and you're just like, man, fuck this. And like what you're saying fuck this to is like your well-being and the well-being of others, whatever people are in your life. But I don't know, just one of the many mysteries of addiction and the way it works in our brain. So I don't know, just thought I'd do a video on that. Why not? Fuck it, right? All right. Anyways, I have links and stuff in the description below about the podcast, about my book, about the email, the confidential email, anything you want to check out. Other than that, be well.